Today we zoom in on a specific class of failure that sits at the center of many real-world breaches: broken access control. This is not an exotic zero-day. It's not cryptographic wizardry. It's not some advanced nation-state exploit. It's simply this: a system failed to enforce a trust boundary it claimed to have. Let's make that concrete. A trust boundary says, on this side, you are allowed. On that side, you are not. Broken access control says, actually, you are. And that small difference changes everything. Imagine an API endpoint. get/API/users/1234/invoices. The front end hides invoices that don't belong to you. The UI only shows your own invoice links. It feels safe. But what if the backend only checks authentication? Are you logged in? And forgets to check authorization? Is this invoice yours? An attacker logs in as themselves, changes the URL to /API/users/999/invoices, and suddenly they see someone else's data. This is called IDOR, Insecure Direct Object Reference. Mechanically, what happened? A boundary existed between your data and other people's data. The system assumed the front end would enforce it. The back end trusted the caller too much. The boundary wasn't enforced where it mattered. This is one of the most common broken access control failures in modern applications, and it's shockingly simple. Now imagine an internal admin panel. It lives at admin.internal.company. The developers think, it's fine, it's only accessible inside the corporate network. That's the boundary assumption. But then, a developer's laptop is compromised, a VPN credential is stolen, or a cloud network rule is misconfigured. Now an attacker can reach that admin panel. If that panel does not require strong authentication and role-based checks, the attacker suddenly has administrative power. The boundary inside the network was treated as equivalent to trusted, but networks are not identities. This pattern has led to countless real-world breaches. The internal network is not a security boundary. It is a routing configuration. Consider a cloud storage bucket. It contains backups or logs or internal documents. A misconfiguration makes it publicly readable. No exploit required, no malware needed, just a broken policy. This is a boundary violation at the infrastructure layer. The boundary private object storage silently collapsed into public internet. The system did exactly what it was configured to do, but the trust boundary was wrong. Many major breaches have started this way, not with intrusion, but with exposure. Security didn't fail because it was bypassed. Security failed because it was never enforced. Now let's examine something more subtle. In modern systems, services authenticate using tokens, JEB-duties, OAuth tokens, Cloud IAM roles. Each token has a scope. It says, this identity can perform these actions. But suppose a token issuer is misconfigured, or suppose a service fails to validate the token's audience field. An attacker modifies a token, or obtains a token intended for service A, and reuses it against service B. Service B accepts it. Suddenly, a boundary between services collapses. The token became a skeleton key. This is not theoretical. Token validation errors have repeatedly led to cross-service boundary violations in distributed systems. The boundary was cryptographic, but the enforcement was incomplete. This one is increasingly common. A company runs automated builds. The CI runner has broad permissions. It can deploy to production. A developer repository allows pull requests from forks. An attacker submits a malicious pull request that modifies the pipeline configuration. If the CI system runs that pull request with production-level credentials, the attacker gains deployment rights. The boundary between untrusted contributor and trusted deployer was crossed. The system assumed that code running in CI was trusted. But CI is a bridge. If that bridge is not carefully guarded, it becomes a highway into production. So far, we have talked about cases. What do they have in common? Look at the pattern. In each case, a trust boundary existed. The system relied on an assumption. The enforcement was incomplete or misplaced. An attacker crossed the boundary without extraordinary effort. Broken access control is rarely dramatic. It is usually boring: a missing check, an overly broad permission, a forgotten validation step, a misconfigured policy. But security collapses quietly before it collapses loudly. Unlike memory corruption bugs or cryptographic flaws, access control failures often require no specialized tooling, leave minimal forensic traces, and exploit legitimate system features. If a system believes a user is allowed to perform an action, it will log that action as normal. From the system's perspective, nothing illegal happened. That's what makes boundary violations so insidious. They look like ordinary traffic. Let's turn lessons into defenses. First, enforce authorization at the deepest layer. Never rely on front-end controls. Back-end services must verify ownership and roles on every sensitive operation. Second, separate authentication from authorization clearly. Being logged in is not the same as being allowed. Third, use least privilege aggressively. Service accounts, tokens, and CI runners should have narrowly scoped permissions. If a component is compromised, it should hit a wall quickly. Fourth, validate tokens completely. Check signature, expiration, audience, issuer, and scope. Partial validation is not validation. Fifth, segment your network. Do not treat internal as trusted. Every internal service should authenticate and authorize requests. Sixth, automate access reviews. Humans accumulate permissions over time. Drift creates escalation paths. Seventh, log boundary crossings meaningfully. Record who accessed what resource and under which role. Anomalies become detectable only when visibility exists. Let's wrap it up. A boundary violation is not just a bug. It is a mismatch between declared trust and enforced trust. Your architecture diagram may show clean lines between zones, but reality lives in the enforcement code. Security exists where checks execute, not where slides draw boxes.